I have been very curious, especially I know personally that farm animals, including chickens, they are intelligent, they are sentient being, they have the ability to express themselves in a unique way. So I've been looking at how do I decode them? How do we make it more understandable to people who are not from a ethology or behavioral background? Is there any way technology can be put to a much more better use in terms of translating the different ways the life is happening surrounding them, because their life is too short, a few years, sometimes few months, especially chickens. So is there something we could do to enrich their quality of life in that shorter period? That's one question. Second question is, I'm always curious to understand the interface. If you put little circles, and then bring all of these circles together, there is a common area, like a Venn diagram, caters to all four or five circles. So, in that particular interconnected zone, under the umbrella of one welfare, one health, one world, how does this communications happen between the humans and the chickens? So, can that learning be applied for improving the welfare aspects? So, that's the two aspects of my own specific. And then, of course, can we be able to use the social media to create more awareness among the people who are in this domain? Because we don't get any profit. Even the June 3rd HCFAI, there was no money paid to speakers, no profit, nothing. It's all not for profit, knowledge sharing, knowledge creation. So that's again, we are from academic institution. Curiosity also plays a significant role.
Okay, interesting. Okay. So I think there's quite a lot of overlap in our interests because you're sort of coming from a scientific background and wanting to make the science more appealing to the general public, where I have a bit of scientific training, but I'm sort of I'm going from outside the scientific realm, and in a way, I'm trying to make science more appealing
Mhm.
to the general public. So I'm taking these animals that I'm training and doing things, but I'm using as much as possible some scientific principles and showing that you can, with simple scientific principles, you can find out a lot about how their minds work. It's a bridge between the scientific and non-scientific, a different kind of a bridge between the scientific and non-scientific.
Yeah, so that's also one of our goal. How do we translate science to non-scientists? We call this as KTT, knowledge transfer and translation. How do we bring the science by involving citizens under the citizen science initiative of NSERC and other world governing bodies? So when we look at this, because we are connected, we live in a society where we coexist with farmers, animals, people who disagree with us, people who may not be fully aware of the farm animal management. So, is it possible for us to use science as a tool, science as a bridge, to be able to connect with them to create that awareness?
Yeah,
So that's it's very similar. We are just putting it different words. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's
Well,
fantastic.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Emil. You said you are going to be in your garage.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I thought I would start out in the house because I have some notes and ideas, and then when we've kind of gone over the chatting part, I can go out to the garage, show the different props and how I use them very quickly, and I can get a volunteer chicken who can come and demonstrate them maybe if you have time for that.
course, that would be really fun, and I look
Okay.
forward to it. Perhaps, Emily, could you start? We have been chatting, we have been exchanging emails. I really love the very detailed, in-depth report you have put together based on some of the work you have done. But for the sake of our audience, people who may look at this video, could you explain who you are? What's your background?
Sure. I'm Emily Carrington, and my training is in veterinary medicine, and I have done one small research project and got it published. So that was an introduction to the scientific method. And being a veterinarian, I've always had a passion for animals. Um, and especially on a personal level, I want to know how they think. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? And the tricks that I train them to do, although they're very simple tricks, the goal is, first of all, to have a little fun, create a bond with them, understand them. But mostly it's to try to figure out how they see the world and interact with the world, and use simple tests to try to get some ideas about how they see the world.
Can you share the story of how you first started taming and training these laying hens?
Sure. It started off as a some chickens to keep my dad entertained as he was aging, and then I began to work with them because I remembered somebody mentioning something. I think it was called chicken camp, where people dog trainers would take chickens and they would teach them how to do things. And the goal wasn't to teach the chickens. The goal was to teach the people how to train better. So they use clicker training with chickens, and they can identify the difference between circles and triangles and squares. They can be taught to peck something or not peck something, and they seem to be able to tell different colors. So I thought that was really interesting. And I thought, since I had the chickens around anyway, I would see if I could push that a little bit, and the shapes and colors and numbers and things, and see where I got to the edge of it or where they stopped being able to understand it. So the first batch I didn't train, the first batch of 6 chickens, that was for Dad to be pets. But the second batch I started training, and then they went to stay at a farm after about a year. And then this is the third batch. So I took what I learned from the second batch, which was um, it was a very slow learning curve because I didn't have much to go with. I couldn't really find much about it. But once I figured out a few simple things, the training became very rapid. And once I figured out a few key things to getting them to learn, it just took off.
So these three batches of laying hens, chickens, over a period of how many months, years?
I kept each batch for about a year, um, and then sent them off to another farm, just an acreage where they could have more space to roam around. But and I left about a year in between each batch, so probably over about, I'd say the teaching them part would be over 4 or 5 years. So I trained one batch for a year, but I'm not training them, 8 hours a day for a year. It only takes 1 or 2 minutes with each chicken to train them. So it was only, but it was just kind of spread out. So I worked with the one batch for about a year, and that's where I learned a few basic things. And then this batch I've been training since last April, so a little over a year. But the first month or two, I think, was just getting them used to me because they came to me as point of lay highline hens, and they didn't know anything. They just sat there and didn't move. And so I had to teach them to take grain. They'd never seen grain before. I had to teach them that was food. I had to teach them how to, let me touch them, and then very slowly get them used to being picked up. And then once they were used to that, once they learned that there was food and they did stuff for food, they were super excited about the whole thing.
Yes, food is always a reward for training
Yes.
farm animals. You mentioned 1 or 2 minutes you spent in terms of training them. As a scientist, when we are looking at translating to the non-scientist, we are always interested in the approaches, methods, and techniques.
Yes.
Like, what kind of techniques did you use to train these chickens to perform the tricks? Can you be able to share some of the most impressive tricks that they have learned?
Sure. I would say, from my point of view, the most impressive trick they learned was they seem to be able to tell letters apart. So
Mhm.
I can't tell them to go and peck. I can't say, go peck the A. But if I show them the A and a bunch of other letters, they will seek out the A and they will peck it because they know that's the one that gets them reward. So that is the one that surprised me. But I think overall what surprised me the most is I can teach them 5 new tricks in a week, just, working with them 2 minutes each a day. Once they learn, it's just very, very rapid. And I started out with very basic clicker training. I just to summarize it, because there was a learning curve about me how to do this, but you get something for them to peck, and if they don't understand they're supposed to peck it, you can put a little 2 or 3 bits of grain on it, and they will go and peck on the grain. And then after a while, they learn that if they peck the object, they get the grain. That's it in a nutshell. But they also learn to tug on things, and they learned that if they can if they get a small treat for doing something a little bit, they get a bigger treat for doing it more, so that you can teach them to tug on a string to ring a bell. At first, they just peck the string, and then they learn to tug it. And the more they tug it, the longer I allow them to eat the treat, to eat the grain afterwards. And they learn that if they don't peck close enough to an object, they might not get a treat. The next time they'll peck closer. So they've learned like how to I can calibrate what they do to be more or less vigorous. And I realized that a lot of this is new. So as you know, I have some YouTube channels, or a YouTube channel called The Thinking Chicken. And in those, what I do is I break down everything about the training into step by step, so that literally anybody with a chicken could train them. Because every single step for everything that I've trained them will be there. I've made 5 or 6 videos, but I think next winter I'm hoping to make probably a good 10 more and explain how I train them, how I set up the design of my tests for them, and the results.
Yeah.
But the basics are very simple.
Yeah, in the report, Emily, the document you have shared with me, I kind of inferred that chickens can remember the order. For example, if it's A, B, C, D, and then you wanted the chicken to pick up A all the time, you shuffle, you give food as reward, and after some time, you try to show it has the ability to remember and goes back and pick exactly A as the letter. So, how does this happen? Can you elaborate on this and share the ability of the chicken to remember and its awareness and the memory associated to it?
Do you mean how do they remember one single letter compared to others?
Yes, yeah.
Um, I suspect, I'm not sure, but my suspicion is it's mostly based on their very good eyesight, and that in the wild they would probably have to remember which bugs are good to eat and which bugs aren't. And bugs are pretty small. So I just suspect they have really good eyesight and a ability to remember. I don't know why they can remember, these objects, and why they remember so quickly. I feel that they do learn faster than dogs. I can teach them something once, or something can happen once, and the next day they will expect it to be the same. The change, they will adapt to the change after seeing it once. They will remember the next day what that change is. And it's almost as if their brains are wired to just see something once and remember it. Um, and different sizes, like I've worked with different sized objects. I've taken, one object, the A, which is just the letter that I happen to start with, and brought it down to see how small it could be, and they can still recognize it from other letters. And I think I got down to 12, I think about 15-point font, so pretty small. And they could still remember it. So, and they're very coordinated, I found. So if there's something involved them pulling a string or jumping through a hoop, they're naturally coordinated, so it's easy for them to pick up on that.
So what are these letters made of? In addition to the visual ability, do they use smell? For example, they may identify or relate the letter A to the expected food reward. Are there any other cognitive ability displaying by the chickens in this particular process of differentiating letters? Um, are there any other intelligent cues that could be understood based on this particular process?
I wonder, I'm not sure what you mean. Can you
For
elaborate?
example, if the letter A is printed in a sheet of paper or maybe a plastic shaped
Okay,
letters, so it's a different materials of these
I
letters
see.
that the
Okay,
chicken has the ability to smell it, in addition to the visual cues, so that they can combine the both the smelling ability as well as the visual ability to integrate to make that judgment.
okay. I'm not sure. I tried to limit my teaching to one variable at a time, to try to disentangle whether it was real or not. So I only really investigated their vision. I didn't investigate their hearing much except for normal interaction with them, but I didn't test their hearing. I didn't test their smell. But what I did was and the materials I used were fridge magnets.
Hmm.
They're just easy. You can go buy a bag of them and you have instant, all your letters there. So I started with the fridge magnets because I made assumptions that, they would need to see something big and three-dimensional and bright for them to catch their attention. So that was my assumption. So I worked with that, and I found that if the fridge magnet, it can be hard or soft, but the problem with the soft fridge magnets is when they peck it, they make little dents, and they can memorize this change in the pattern.
Hmm.
And it messed up one of my little tests is that they had memorized the changes in the object that had been made by
The
pecking at.
cost, yeah.
Yes, yes. So, but the nice thing about the plastic fridge magnets is I don't think they keep odor on them very much. They don't stain, they don't change. Um, and I found that whether or not the letter was upside down or the right way up, they would still recognize it. Whether it was mirror images, they would still recognize it. And I found when I switched to, after they got the fridge magnet A figured out, I then printed out approximately the same size black letters on paper, just very simple font. And they immediately recognized it as being the same shape, even though it was a different color. And it was now two-dimensional instead of three-dimensional. And they also recognized it when I shrank the size down, they continued to recognize it.
Because these backyard chickens, so if they have been in their comfort zone, if they have been exposed to new situation or some kind of frightened situation, for example, a car is driving fast nearby, or if there is any similar scenarios, how do they react? Are there any intelligent choices these chickens choose to make? Are there any examples you could give in terms of when they are exposed to new scenarios or different frightened scenarios?
Well, I would say as a generalization, they can get used to anything. So when I first got them, they were afraid of the traffic driving by, but then they completely got used to that.
Hmm.
I think they were afraid of the sky when I first got them because they would look out, they would stare up at the sky very suspiciously for the first day
Hmm.
or two. But I found that I think part of it too is they became to trust me that I wasn't going to put them into a bad situation. So overall, what I did was I left the garage doors open because I wanted to be sure that the chickens were there willingly. And so if they could walk out the door anytime they want and leave. And they only left twice in the entire year that I trained them. Once was when I lifted up a mirror. I had a big long mirror. I was trying to see what happened so I just grabbed the mirror like that, and the chicken kind of just like, whoa, what is that? And she marched out the door. She didn't fly or panic. She just marched out the door, marched across the yard, and went over to her coop and stood by the door to be let in, which I thought was smart. I expected her to panic and fly out into the traffic or something awful. But they've never gone anywhere near the road, even though it's fairly close to the garage. And the other time was actually, I was doing a Guinness World Record attempt, which my chicken got, by the way, for the most amount of identifications in 1 minute. So I'm waiting for the certificate. It's great fun. But while I was doing that, I was sweeping off the floor so that there wouldn't be any grain to distract them from the task. And as I started to sweep, the chicken didn't like that at all. So she, and that was with a whole bunch of strangers in the building as well. So she didn't panic either. She walked rapidly across the garage, and I built them a little wagon that's shaped like a bus to carry them around in. And she marched up the ramp and went into the wagon as if to say, "Take me back to my coop. I don't like it in here." But there was no panicking or, and one of the things, looking back, I learned in vet school, one of the things we learned was these stories of chickens panicking and piling up in a corner and suffocating. I've never seen that in real life, thank goodness, but I learned that that was a thing. And that affected my expectations of what would happen. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that with chickens is that we have expectations that they're not smart, that they panic, that they're flighty, that, we have a long list of expectations with chickens, and I found that most of them really aren't true.
Yeah, homomorphism, and we try to project our own inner world and inner values to the farm animal management. Um, Emily, it's really, really interesting and fascinating. And you also mentioned about the Guinness World Record with the chickens. That's fantastic. How do you go about communicating with your chickens? You also mentioned that you make a call. Sometimes they try to return your call back through their own vocalization, different types of amplitude, frequency, and the pitch and the change in the tone of the energy of the calls they make. Do they have any unique ways of communicating back to you? How do you decode or, put because it's very non-tangible, there is really no baseline available in terms of creating this two-way communication, kind of chicken translation between human and the bird. Are there any unique ways of communicating back to you? How do you go about explaining this?
Well, with my second batch of chickens, it never occurred to me to communicate with them. I was just trying to tame them so that I could do things with them.
Mm.
With this batch of chickens, this third batch of 6 chickens, I wanted to see what would happen if I treated them like people. And not to be totally ridiculous, and I'm not going to watch TV with them at night and stuff. But I wanted to see what would happen is if I treated them like a person I was really trying to understand. And I think when I took on that attitude, then they started to really make an effort back. They made the effort back. It was almost as if they realized that I was going to listen to them. So I don't really know what a lot of the things are because there's not a lot out there, as you know, there's not a lot out there on communicating with chickens. So what it was for me was putting them in different situations, like carrying them to the garage, training them, giving them treats, giving them different kinds of food to see if they liked them or not, and seeing if there was any pattern to their reactions. So I didn't really, and doing it in a way where they weren't confined. And I think that is where things changed, is that I stopped trying to confine them. So I stopped trying to keep them confined in a building or in a yard. When I was working with them, I treated them as if they were able to make up their own minds and do their own things, look after their own safety, make their own choices. And that's when they really started to try to communicate. And I think that they most of what they want is either to be let out into the yard so they can go, dig holes and things like that and peck at the grass. And the other thing is food. That really seems to be all they want in life. At least my six chickens. I don't know about others. So they seem to have three different calls to try to get what they want because they're very vocal about what they want. And I call it demanding chicken, which is just like unrelenting squawking at me.
Yeah.
And then there's sad chicken, which is more like bog. So if demanding chicken doesn't work, they'll try sad chicken for a while. And then if I go up close, they go into charming chicken mode. So they make charming little noises and they warble and they coo and they do all kinds of things like that. And it seemed that the nicer the treat that they would get, the more effort they would put into being sounding charming, which just made me giggle. But the other thing that they did was they would show the second batch of chickens that I had when I wasn't really tuned into how to train them and how to interact with them. I had a task that was impossible. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure it out. So I thought, the way to do it is to repeat it over and over again, which I learned is not the way to do it with chickens. They either get it right away or they don't get it. But when I was less experienced at this, I thought I would just repeat it over and over again and they would get it. But the poor chicken just had day after day of not getting it. And finally, they grabbed, it was different colored paint chips. I had a different colored paint chips and I had this elaborate task figured out for them to do. The chicken just grabbed the paint chip, ran away about 3 or 4 feet, threw it on the ground and stepped on it. And it was a very clear message that she didn't like what she was doing. So I don't really know. The communication seems to mostly be trying to get me to do something or expressing emotion. I haven't seen them express anger or rage or aggression with vocalizations. Like a dog might bark or growl. The chickens don't seem to vocalize to show those emotions. It seems to more be interacting, and they seem to be able to with the vocalizations. They seem to, at least in my interpretation, increase the vocalization or the intensity or the frequency. They seem to, depending on how far away I am, what I've got, what time of day it is, they're like, okay, it's time for my outing, it's time for the training, and they'll start to squawk or try different ways to get my attention.
You mentioned, Emily, that she doesn't seem to like it. So you were able to interpret their likes and dislikes. So you have observed that chickens express their displeasure. So how do you come to that conclusion, a judgment that, hey, she doesn't like it? Can you share a little bit more about their emotional expressions and what they might indicate?
As I mentioned before, I left the doors open so they could walk out. So I thought, okay, this will show me that they don't like what they're doing. They can walk out the door and leave. But I noticed too that when I gave them a dish of carrots,
Mm.
cooked carrots or carrot peelings, they would pick them up. I'd bring them over in a bowl and they'd be all excited because they know the bowl has food in it. and they would grab it, and then 3 or 4 of them started to go like this. They'd shake their head, and the comb makes like a ticking noise. I think the comb must be like flapping, and so they shake their heads, and their comb makes this kind of tick, 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 tick noise. And I thought, that's odd. So then I tried it again. I got the same reaction. And then I started to think backwards as to where I'd seen this before. And it was when I first got them, um, and they were learning to use the perch, and they would be like, I'd open up the coop in the morning, and they'd still be sitting on the perch, or in the evening, and they would be slowly shaking their heads, and this comb would be making this ticking noise. It didn't occur to me what it was, but I think looking back, they were trying to tell me that they didn't want me close to them while they were sitting on the perch. They weren't used to me. This was their safe place, and I was invading it. And the other place I've seen it, now once I clued in, was I saw a chicken on YouTube that was trained to peck on the keys of some kind of a keyboard. And the chicken would peck, peck, shake its head, peck, peck, shake its head. And I think what's happening is the keys are too hard. They seem to have a preference for softer things. Pecking on a very hard object, really hard, I think is uncomfortable for them. And I think that the chicken in the video was in a bit of discomfort. They weren't forced to do it. They got the reward at the end, which is why they were doing it. But it was causing them some discomfort. So it seems that the shaking of the head is something they don't like. I can't tell exactly what it is. But they do it. They did it at first when I would try to pat them. They would shake their head. So they don't seem to like really being touched on their backs. They don't seem to like their feathers being messed with. They don't, or their space invaded, or foods that have an unpleasant taste. So I don't know exactly what it is, but it seems to be things they don't like. It's not always food. It can be other things too.
So there are scenarios that I'm just trying to think as a human being, are we trying to still anthropomorphize here? For example, when the coop door is suddenly opened, the chicken sitting inside on the perch. um, I'm just suspecting, assuming that there is a change in the weather pattern. Maybe outside it's cold, inside it's a bit comfort. So there is a sudden flush of wind inside the particular coop that may cause the chicken to shiver, and then that may cause the bird to shake its head, on both directions. There is a possibility. In the second scenario, I'm also again assuming wild guess. It could be a n number of reason. When the chicken peck the keyboard, each keyboard causes a difference in the level of energy, sound energy generated. If it peck harder, there is a very sudden outburst of sound that may be very close to the eardrums, the ear component of the chickens, that we cause like a sudden shocking. There is a possibility. So there could be n number of factors. So again, we are looking at how do we assess the intelligence of the chickens through the visual cues. The way the chicken perceive visually, the way it listen, different kinds of sound energy that coming in the environment, and using the smelling capability, kind of multimodal ability of the chicken to observe, see, listen, hear, and process internally to react externally.
Yes, understanding what is causing it. With the letters and the numbers, I designed little tests that would show me for fairly certain that what I was seeing was real. But with the other things, they're more observations, of course.
Yeah.
But the thing about chickens that I've learned is that it's very, very easy to assess them. They don't really have any middle setting. They don't learn something part way. They either get it 80, 90, 100% of the time, or it's 50%. They just have no idea, choosing between two things. And I found that even very, very crude statistics, I was able to, it was so glaringly obvious. So I think all of those things you're talking about could easily be assessed by setting up scenarios where you have two different things happening and seeing how the chickens behave, because the two batches of chickens were very consistent in how they learned and behaved. And they were a few years apart, so they probably weren't related. And so training them and assessing them is very easy, and they're very similar. I can't really tell them apart in terms of the results of, there wasn't any one smart chicken. There wasn't one chicken that was smart, and there was no chicken that couldn't do a task. If one chicken could do the task, they all could do the task. So all of those things that you're talking about could very easily be assessed with them.
If one chicken could do the task, all chickens could also do the task. So, in
Yes.
this context, are there any distinct personalities? Because over a 4 to 5 year period, Emily, you have studied three batches of chickens, and one with your father as a pet you started. And then later there was a bit of involvement from your neighbor who just dropped by at your garage and tried to help you out or give a hand in some of the experiments. So there is a bit of interaction, not only with you, but also with other human beings in this context. But the question I'm trying to ask is, out of the 6 or 8 birds you have studied, can you be able to classify, okay, this bird is more friendly, quick learner, charming, this is a bit of bummer, take it easy person? Are there any distinct personalities of your chickens? Were you able to identify them? And how does these personalities influence their behavior in the learning curve of the tricks?
I can tell the difference in between my chickens based on how they behave. Now, I was thinking about this. I don't know what the exact definition of a personality is versus a behavior. I don't really know. I haven't kind of decided. The chickens seem to have they seem very like a chicken. They're all charming, they're all cooperative, they all learn really fast, they all love food. They all seem identical in that regard. So if that's their personality, I would say their personalities are identical, but they show different behaviors. One chicken, I call her Speedy.
Mm,
She does things very quickly, and she pecks the food quickly. She runs to the target, so much that she'll slip on the floor sometimes in her rush. And but that means that her accuracy goes down.
mm,
So it seems they have like a set speed where they do really well at these, and if they go any faster, they start to make mistakes. Other chicken she's very vocal. She will make cooing noises all the time when I carry her or in the garage. She's always making charming cooing noises. Um, One of them was a little timid at first and
mm.
was hard to teach, but by the time 2 months was up, I couldn't tell them apart. She was slightly more accurate. She was just more careful. She was just very slightly more accurate than the others, but not so much that it would, she might be, let's say, 80% versus 75%. It wasn't that she was like a genius or anything. So, but I did find, and also they seem very bonded to certain people. So they interact with me one way. They love my neighbor who brings them breadcrumbs, but and they're fine with strangers, lots of strangers around. But if a stranger picks them up, they will be uncomfortable and try to fly away. And once even one made a kind of wounded animal noise, like something's trying to kill me noise, just like this awful squawk.
Mm.
And but yeah, I can't tell if they have different personalities, but they do exhibit different behaviors that means I can tell them apart by those behaviors.
So now, when you look at the intensive animal farming, the poultry industry, and the farming practices, broilers and laying hens, turkeys, ducks, etc. So how does the findings, your learning experiences with this specific chicken training over the period of 4 years, three batches could potentially contribute or inform broader practices in poultry welfare?
That's an excellent question because, of course, six pet chickens is a very, very different scenario than a real, you know, profitable farm. So I was thinking about it. Almost everything that I do with them is going to increase their health risk because it's exposing them to the outdoors or decrease efficiency. So I was thinking, well, is anything that I'm doing useful at all? I'm not sure. I did notice when I first got this batch of chickens, they refused to go outside for over a week.
Mm.
I was putting them outside and they would walk back up and go inside. So I thought maybe when I got them, they would like run out the door and it'd be like freedom. We're so happy now. But it seemed like to me that they seemed perfectly content, having never seen the outdoors or done any normal chicken things. They seemed perfectly content to sit in the coop, not move very much, and eat for a week until I finally went outside and then they began. So I can't really say if a chicken is inside and healthy and there's good air quality, is it happy like that? Well, it might be. At least it hasn't seen, having never been given a chance to do normal chicken behavior. Maybe it doesn't miss it. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, observing them when they're older and they start to lay eggs and do things like that, I notice they have a very, very strong drive to find a dark place to lay their eggs. They're fascinated by dark corners of the garage. If they're stuck outside and they can't get into their nest box, they want to lay an egg, they get quite distraught. They pace up and down, they run in circles, they mutter. I don't know how else to describe it. And the other thing is that they really, really, really love treats. And I think that may be the only area that, I mean, apart from providing shaded nest boxes, the only area that I think that might be able to be incorporated into a larger production system without risking productivity or health issues, which of course you don't want to do, would be to provide them with food treats that take
Mm.
a long time to eat. I tried different foods with them, and the best one was, in terms of entertaining them for a long time, was corn cobs. So I'd take a corn cob, either cooked with the corn on it
Mhm.
or the corn cut off, either way, tie a string around it and hang it at about head height in their pen, and they would peck at that off and on for 6 to 8 hours, a single corn cob.
Mm.
So it was something that provided them interest. They were really super excited when they see the corn cob. They're running around, they're flinging themselves against the side of the pen, trying to get at it first. So it seems to be something that they're really, I think even if you added those two things, which is, and I don't know, maybe they're already, I'm not a chicken veterinarian and not, my knowledge of the industry is very, very minimal. But I think the darkened chicken, the egg boxes being darkened, they seem highly motivated to that.
Mhm.
And to have, if somebody brought them a treat at roughly the same time every day that took them a long time to eat, I think that would enhance their overall enjoyment. We all have pictures of chickens running free and frolicking in the fields, but the truth is, you have to worry about the predators. You have to worry about diseases that can be transmitted to humans as well, and and the loss of production. Those are all things to think about. But yeah, I was amazed that just a simple corn cob hanging in there kept them entertained for hours and hours and hours.
So the last question, Emily, is how do you think, artificial intelligence and advanced technologies can potentially enhance the understanding and welfare of chickens in farming settings as well as in the production, intensive farming?
I think I think it could be used in an experimental way to understand them, but in terms of the on a farm, again, it's not my area of expertise, but I would imagine that you would be able to control the environment better, temperature, humidity, um, air quality. You'd be able to control that a lot better, and you'd be able to possibly assess individual animals. Like you may be able to detect an animal who has a fever or something, or one that's separated off to themselves, and control the efficiencies. So I imagine increases in efficiency and increases in um, environmental quality would probably increases in ability to detect disease early, I would imagine would be where it might stand out.
Okay, thank you so much, Emily. Now, if you wanted to move to garage to show the
Oh,
chicken,
sure.
that would be fantastic.
So you can see here, this is I call her Chicken One
Mhm.
or Bossy Pants because I think she's the boss chicken. And here's a question I have for you or maybe somebody. She seems to be different than the others in that these little patches here are very white. And she's the boss chicken. I'm wondering if just anybody could tell me if that's something that happens to the boss chicken if they develop those white patches. But that's just a question. So let's see.
So,
I just need
what
to.
breed it is, Emily?
She's a
Maiden?
highline. She's a
Highline.
highline.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's very, as you can see, very focused on me. She knows there's food coming. And she's just kind of hanging around and waiting for things to get started. So I'll just start her with a treat. I just make this very, very crude clicker training outfit, which is basically just a stick with a clicker attached to it. I don't even know if you need this because they'll probably learn without it. So I'll just show you a few things. Hopefully they'll get them right now that they're on. Now that they're so this, I don't know if you can see there. This has an A and a S. So I'll just show. So she pecks the A. And what I'll do is I'll turn on this camera too, just to record at the same time. Okay, so now there's two separate recordings of the same thing. So did that show up at all? Was that visible from your side?
Yeah, we can clearly see she picked the EA instead of yes. Yeah.
Okay, and for this one, she's supposed to peck the J and not the T.
Okay.
Okay. So she went over to that one. This one, and I'll put this one on the left-hand side just for variety. This is she's supposed to peck the O instead of the Z. And I have to put them about 5 feet away. If they go close, they make a lot of mistakes. So, nope. Oh, she didn't get that one. Okay, let's try that one again.
So it seems to be picking only the right side rather than the left side.
Yes, yes. And I haven't done this for quite a long time with her. I've been working on a different thing with her. So let me just try that again. No, I think she's forgotten that one for now. So let's try the B. She's supposed to peck the B. What you did? Oh, okay. Okay, she's just pecking stuff on the right-hand side. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go. I haven't done much work with her lately. I'm going to go and get chicken number 2. I'll be right back. This is chicken 2, and she was the world record holding chicken, so I've been working with her a lot more. So let's just see how she does.
Interesting.
So this is the J again. Good girl. Okay, and we'll try the O on the left-hand side. Oh, she's doing it too. Okay.
Both right and left, eh? Maybe it's a bit faster for her.
I think she realized she made a mistake. Okay, so now she's getting that one. That's the B. And what I'll do is I'll switch sides. This chicken is very anxious all the time for food. So when switching them, she gets it. This one, she's supposed to peck the circle with 3 beads on it.
Okay.
This one they're not as good at. They seem to make more mistakes with this one. I don't know why. Good girl. Now let's see if I switch the beads, if she will still do it. The chicken.
Yeah.
And then for this one, she's supposed to peck the yellow square.
Okay.
Oh. Okay, I was training them, the last trick I was doing, I was training them on red letters, so now she wants to do that. Okay, let's do this the right way, chicken. This is the one they get like almost 100% of the time, and now that we're recording it, of course, she doesn't. There we go.
If you make a specific call, can they respond? There's a kind of, asking for a response, like a vocalization demonstration.
I don't have any way to elicit different vocalizations out of them, if that's what you mean.
It could be anything, something to show that they respond or react to the calls you make, or she can recognize you through the sounds you utter.
Yeah, I might have something on some of the videos, but I don't think there's anything I could demonstrate.
Okay.
I just know that if they see me or hear me, they'll come running over as a group.
Yeah, she can feel your presence based on the conversations you're having with me and your physical presence and so on.
Yeah. She's looking around for something that will get her a treat. So she's just wandering around looking for a target, which brings me to another thing that I thought might be interesting to try, which is to try them with a new target and see what they do.
Yeah.
So I'll just clear this off. This is something I haven't tried before. So one of the things I learned is that if you teach them things up close, they make mistakes. If you give them 5 feet, they become very accurate, except today, of course, when they're being recorded, but that's just how it goes. So
like, what basis did you choose to use the 5 feet distance?
it's about as far as I can get from one side to the other and still move around in my garage. But I do find if I even go down to 3 or 4 feet, they become less accurate sometimes. I don't know if it's related to their vision or processing time, but there's no doubt in my mind that now she thinks that there's something here that will get her a treat, so she's just pecking anything. Yeah, but what I thought so I learned that with the distance, but when I teach them a new letter, I'm teaching them the letter up close. So I'm wondering if that's a mistake. Maybe I should be teaching it at a distance. So would you like to try a little test with them for 2 minutes?
Yes, yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I set out some, I don't know if this will work or not, but these are letters that they've never seen before in terms of training.
Okay.
So I wondered if you'd pick one that you want to try her to try to learn.
Let's say you.
Okay. Now pick one that you don't want her to pick.
Um, why?
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to try showing her the U once from a distance and see if she can remember it after showing it to her once. And this is just one chicken, of course, but I thought it'd be fun to try. So I'll have to let her go the full 5 feet. So come on over here, Lacey. Okay. She will peck it just because she'll peck anything new, because she's hoping it'll get her a treat. So I'm going to
Yeah.
give her a whole bunch of treats for that. Now I will put this on the right-hand side. This will bias it a little bit, but I'm going to see if now she will pick this one. So I'm going to give her the full 5 feet. Oh, I'm going to start over. There was some food on the ground.
Yeah.
Good girl. There you go. Their treats. Okay, so I'll try that one more time and then I'll switch it and see what happens. Okay, so now I'm going to switch it and see if she still goes for the U.
Yeah.
Once again.
We use on the left side.
It does.
Oh, okay.
So I'll try it again. And she did. She stopped and had a look. Okay, just for kicks, I'll switch it back again.
If you add maybe 1 or 2 more letters, would it still be able to, she be able to remember, recognize?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
No, I was wondering if you add maybe 1 or 2 more letters in addition to U and Y, can she be able to differentiate? Okay, this is U. There are just specifically U in the presence of extra 1 or 2 more letters.
She might. I have taught them she could pick the letter A, fridge magnet, out of the whole alphabet. Not 100%
Or
of the
maybe it
time.
adds a little more complexity in their
Yeah.
cognitive process. Yeah.
And they tended to be more accurate in the middle part. They didn't tend to want to walk to the very end. This is the thing I made them for the whole alphabet.
Ah, okay, okay, okay. Wow.
So they could pick the A out of all the letters in there, but they tended not to want to walk to the very end and check. They would tend to only check very well in the
Not
middle.
a gradient.
So
It's like
what
a
we can,
yes or no, on, off, rather than a
yeah,
gradient. Yeah.
do you want to try this and see what she does?
Sure. Maybe switch the U to the left side because just to make sure that there is no preference for the
Yeah.
left versus right. Yeah.
They do prefer to peck things on the right-hand side. That's something I've found for sure in both batches.
Okay, okay.
But so let's see. This is a bit of a challenge, chicken. Let's see if you can do it. No. Nope. So that was too much for her little chicken brain. But it could be that the Y and the U look the same to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
They both have kind of a cup. So let's just make it a little easier for her and see if what she does to that.
Sure. Yeah, okay. Really interesting.
No, I think it's too much for her little chicken brain, but she was able to learn after showing her once.
Yeah.
With 2 of them. She was able to remember it after once.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which I think is very interesting that they can remember after seeing something one time. Now, of course, when I first started training them, it took me 2 weeks to get them to learn to peck something. But now, I just want to show you this.
Where is she? Oh, she went inside
Yeah.
that. Okay, yeah.
They have a fascination with any dark spots.
Curious, always
Yeah.
curious. Yeah.
I think she's checking out potential nesting places, what I think she's up to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's other tricks. Oh well, there's a couple of other tricks, but that's the main idea. And what I think might be interesting about this is they weren't able to learn after showing them something once up close. So my next little test for them will be today I'm going to try this, what I did with her. I'll try it with all of the chickens and see if they are able to learn. If you present something to them far away, are they able to learn it after showing them one? All of them. Can they all
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
No, because they can't do it up close. I already know that. So.